So, yeah, Mitch, I love your being here. Thank you very much, by the way.
No, it's my pleasure.
Hopefully, Dr. Tiff is back next week.
Yeah, I hope so. Hey, just for her own sake.
I know, right? She's good. She's good. And I didn't realize we're live, so I want to kind of. Okay. Here we are. One more week. You know what I didn't do is turn my light on.
Oh, good.
Light on?
I don't know. Try it off. Let's see. I think it's good. I mean, both is good.
I trust you.
Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Mitch.
Hey, Jim.
A little bit of a scramble here. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, it's getting cold here in Canada.
It's getting cold here
Yeah.
in Colorado as well, though I bet you it's a little bit colder where you're at than it is.
Yeah, I think it was like 8 degrees or something. Celsius.
Okay, what is that in Fahrenheit?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know what Celsius is.
I don't know.
We'll just.
We're going to be.
Yeah, together we'll just make a mess out of this. Hi, Lucy. How are you tonight? Dr. Tiff, or Dr. Midge, welcome to this live stream. Hi, guys. Welcome to the live stream. My name is Jim, and this is Dr. Midge Brown. Dr. Midge, we call her Midge, Dr. Midge. Welcome to this live stream. And tonight we're going to talk some really exciting things. I've got an amazing guest coming up, Dr. Midge. I'm really excited for you to meet her. Awesome. I'm just getting to know her myself. I've only met her one time, really. And it was, well, I guess twice, but briefly. So her story is as new to me as it is going to be to you, which is kind of cool. It's a little bit terrifying. I like to be a little bit more planned going into live streams. But, you know, I think you're saying real quick, I kind of wing it and see what happens, hope for the best.
Yeah, right? That's awesome.
Folks, welcome to this live stream. My name is Jim Grasser, and I used to be a lumber guy. I was a competitive barbecue cook as well. I love getting out on the road and trying my hand at barbecue competitions and getting out and really just kind of enjoying that culture and enjoying those that group of people. That's where I belong. And I think I got into it a little bit more than the other guys did because I got sick. I got really sick. I got type 2 diabetes, 12.2% A1C. And as I look around at the field of guys that I used to compete against, I got to think I wasn't the only one with that. I also had high blood pressure. I had high cholesterol. I had all this stuff. Dr. Mitch, I was listening to Trent last night, and he was talking about this triglycerides and HDL, right? And how we're supposed to be under 2.
Yeah.
Mine was
1.5. Yeah.
Mine was 25.5.
That is, I think that's a record for me.
It was a 561 divided by 22.
Holy
cow. And that number is supposed to be under, if you take your triglycerides and divide it by your HDL, that's kind of your insulin resistance score. Is that what we'll call it?
That's right.
Okay.
It's a good number.
It should be under 1.5. 2's the top end of the threshold. Above 2, you got to deal with. You got problems. And I was at 25.5.
Yeah.
I also, in addition to that, I had a 459 LDL.
Okay.
I was basically 1 foot in the grave.
Yeah.
And made some massive life changes, went on all the medications, got my numbers under control. My friends would say, wow, it was kind of amazing. Kind of had a full recovery. And I'm like, I didn't have a full recovery. I'm on heavy medications, like heavily medicated. I never really liked that, but I guess I was accepting of it until the medications went on national back order, and I had to find something else. And I came across this system, the Field Rate system. Talk about it tonight. Just 2 little packets. You pair it with an intermittent fasting schedule, and man, did everything change for me. I went to TikTok and started telling people about it on TikTok.
Yeah.
Dr. Midge, I haven't even added up the number, but I think it's somewhere around 100 people I've helped reverse type 2 diabetes. And I don't like to say that I've helped, but I've been part of, let's say that way.
That's amazing.
And it is amazing. I've now completely reversed type 2 diabetes. My cholesterol numbers, I still got some work to do on the cholesterol. It's not nowhere near what it was.
Yeah.
But I've got some work to do on the cholesterol. 127 is my triglycerides.
Okay.
And 46 is my HDL.
Yeah.
So I'm hanging out at like a 2.7 now.
But
but I'm way better than 25 and a half. Anyway, I started going to lives and talking about this, and I've met a ton of people,
Yeah.
including yourself. Dr. Midge, will you tell us about you? I know all about you, but
Yeah.
introduce yourself to our audience.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Jim. Anyways, thanks for having me here. This is so fun.
Let me back this up a little bit. Dr. Tiffany Marie and I have been doing this live stream now for about 4 months, and Dr. Tiffany Marie's had to kind of step away for a couple of weeks. I'm hoping she's back next week. But Dr. Midge has been gracious enough to jump in and fill Dr. Tiffany's shoes. And so, to be honest, Dr. Tiff's gonna have some big shoes to fill.
No, I have big shoes to fill because she's the best. I love Dr. Tiffany. I love her.
So with that in mind, Dr. Midge, I could go through and do your introduction, but I would rather you. I want to hear you say, because I love the way I love listening to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm a doctor in Canada. I'm a pediatric endocrinologist. I trained here in Toronto at SickKids. But when I was doing my peds residency, my father got type 2 diabetes, and he was on the other side of the country, and he was very sick because a lot of people who get diabetes, they ignore their symptoms. So he actually ended up being hospitalized. And for me, I was not able to help him physically. So I wanted to help him by choosing the specialty of endocrinology and learning more about what was afflicting him and how I could help him. So that's how I ended up doing my peds residency to doing my peds endocrine fellowship, subspecializing. And in the, I guess 28 years now, actually, in those 28 years, he has literally had so many of the complications that we all have as, diabetics. He's almost blind because of diabetic retinopathy. He has kidney failure, mild, but still kidney failure. He has like heart disease. He's had multiple, heart issues where he needs a pacemaker. He has dementia, which I think of all of them is the hardest thing to accept. Anyways, and so basically this is with him having universal health care where we are in Canada. So we have all the health care that we can get. We have all the medications. We have all the doctors, specialists available. We actually brought them to live with us after a few years so we could get him, our friends, to be his doctors. And despite that, he still suffered. And so when I got prediabetes in my late 40s, I'm 54 now, but when I started getting it, I got really worried because I knew exactly what this involved. I knew exactly what was involved for me if I didn't do something different, right? And by different, I mean just rely on the medications because I know that wasn't helping. I had seen it. And so essentially, I started really looking into other ways to help. And some of the things were intermittent fasting and carb restriction. And I was lucky enough to find this person online, a doctor, Dr. Jason Fung, who talked about this. And he's a nephrologist, ironically, here in Toronto as well, who was talking about this. And at the time, he was like, what's the term? Like a renegade? Is that the right term?
Yep.
Where literally other doctors, other healthcare organizations were saying, you're nuts. Like you can't reverse type 2 diabetes, right? And he got a lot of flack and he persisted. He was able to show in his clinic that if you put somebody on a fasting regimen and carb restrict, that you could indeed restrict or you could reverse their diabetes. And the Diabetes Association has actually changed their tune, right? And said, now you can. But regardless, I started doing all of that, went right in and really suffered with the carb restriction part. Like the intermittent fasting was pretty good for me. I didn't suffer with it. Once you get used to it, it becomes easier. But the carb restriction was really hard because I love food. I love rice. I love desserts. Every time I was good for a while, I'd fall off the wagon. And then, I would eat all of these carbs again. I saw my hemoglobin A1C climbing up where it was a 6. So nothing too crazy, but that was me really trying to keep it there, as well as go on metformin to keep there as well. It's kind of the story of how I found this system. And also when I started the system, I was 20 pounds menopausal at that, and I had a lot of brain fog. I had anxiety, and I had just low energy, like things that we're all getting. And so I found the system in October 2022. And at that point, I was just like looking for something for my constipation. So it wasn't even about the sugar, it was about my constipation. Then realized after I started looking into it that this is going to help me with my diabetes. And that's kind of where I found it. That was 2 years ago. And since then, actually, like right away, the tea for me, I don't know how it was for you, Jim, but the tea was like, this is incredible. What is this stuff? Right? Like it was amazing. So that was fantastic, right? Then I started to just feel more energetic. I started to brain fog away, the anxiety and depression went away, and I started to lose weight, which was like, wow, this is amazing. Like I hadn't even gone in for the weight loss, but it was like, this is amazing to notice my blood sugars come down, and my hemoglobin A1C went down to 5.3 this past year. It was 5.3, and I was off metformin. So amazing. So that's kind of my story and why I started the products, the results I got, and realized, I got to get my husband to do them. And he lost 30 pounds. He lost 30 pounds in, like actually it took him a while because he wasn't consistent at the beginning. And now, since he's been so consistent, he's lost 30 pounds. He's off his blood pressure medications. And then just one more story about my family is my father. We were able to put him on the products because my mom is by him, and she would give him the products every day, very consistent. He loved the products, actually. He loved the taste. But he wasn't doing the intermittent fasting or the carb restriction part. And despite that, we were able to bring his hemoglobin A1C down from 8.3 to 6.3. So much so his doctor, his endocrinologist, was shocked. So that's my father.
Dr. Midge, there are so many layers of this that I wanted to unravel. First things first being, you're a doctor, more so you're an endocrinologist who found yourself in the pre-diabetic range.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine you being 20 pounds overweight. But
Yeah.
I've seen Dr. Midge in person, guys. She's about the size of a little tiny doll. She's about this tall and about this big. But it's funny that here we think of the doctors, well, they know better. How can somebody who knows better? And what I've kind of put together in my head is I think that you guys put your effort into your patients. And I think you work yourselves a little bit to the bone.
Yeah.
And kind of put your own healthcare on the show. Is that relatively accurate?
Yeah, no, absolutely, right? Like we work hard, we work long hours, we work overnight shifts. So there's a lot of stress involved in how our health is, for sure. But I think even with doctors, even outside of that, there's a lot of things that we don't know, right? Like, for example, on use without medications, that was not something that I had learned. I just knew because of what I was seeing going to help me. And so I did the research. So a lot of doctors don't know this, even what I'm saying, right? Like we talk to doctors all the time and they're like, oh, intermittent fasting's a fad. You know what I mean? Like I still get this from doctors. So yeah, there's a lot. Yeah.
Do you remember how many hours of nutritional courses you had to take to get your doctorate?
You know what? Maybe we got a course. Like maybe, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a big deal. If we understand that this is a food-based sickness, is that a lifestyle disease, a lifestyle condition? Is that fair to call this? And I'm going to let you're going to go through, and she's going to give us an amazing presentation here in a moment. I know what's coming. You guys don't. But we can call it a lifestyle disease, right? It's the food that we're eating and the lack of exercise, and it's all of these things. I guess the other part of this onion that I wanted to peel back was that even as a doctor, knowing that processed foods are bad and that these foods are the bad thing, it was still, even you found yourself in it.
The same message that you guys are hearing, we're hearing, right? It's not a different message. It's not like they taught us something else and told you something differently. We're all hearing the same thing. So we are doing the same thing as you guys. Like, I still talk to doctors who are saying, oh, no, you can't eat that much like meat. You can't eat that much fat. Like, all of these things that the regular mainstream message wants us to know, that is also being told to the doctors. So we're working with the same information, and it just takes some people who are like, clearly this isn't working, to kind of look underneath the curtains and say, okay. So it's too bad. And I always used to think it was weird, just like you said about the nutrition courses and how little they had taught us. And I really think, now, I think it was by design, right? Like, why wouldn't they teach us this? Like, this is the human body is what we feed it. And I think it was by design that they did not do this, looking back, being a bit more cynical than I was, right? But yeah, it's unfortunate.
Okay. I want to bring in our first guest. She's amazing. And like I told you a moment ago, I'm just getting to her. I've just met her. So in the last week. In fact, I reached out to my team and asked them if they had anybody that they would like to showcase. And this person's name came up. It's a pretty amazing story, and I talked to them briefly, so it's as new to me as it is to you. So without further ado, what I want to do is introduce Renee. And Renee, you got to help me with your last name. How do is it Well?
It's Lali.
Lali. Okay, Lali. Hi, Renee. How are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
I am doing wonderful. My favorite question to ask when I do these, because truthfully, we all three met off of social media. The three of us know each other through social media. So I always like to ask the question, how did we meet? And where was your health at when we met? And where is it at now? Now, of course, your health, you didn't meet me. You met somebody else. So tell that story. How did you get to here?
So I got to hear through TikTok, through videos and live stream about how to get metabolically healthy. And with that, I met Kristen Conley through TikTok and reached out to her. I had already started using the product through TikTok. I just kind of went on a whim and ordered the product and tried it, and it has changed my life drastically.
That is amazing. Something else I forgot to say is there are a lot of people being tagged into this live stream. If you've been tagged into this live stream, that means that whoever tagged you thinks that you could benefit from the message that's going to be given in this live stream. So if you've been tagged, if you've been invited into this live stream, stick around. It'll be worth it. I promise it'll be worth it. Stick around. It's only an hour, and actually we're gonna stop about 5 minutes early today. So stick around and watch this. If you've been tagged, stick around. If you are here on the system, this is a perfect opportunity for you to tell somebody else about the system. The way that you would invite somebody else into this live stream is hit the @ symbol and then start typing their name. And when you do that, it'll eventually pop up their name. You just hit enter. And when it does that, it'll bring them into the live stream. Let's everybody, I want to make the goal of everybody who's in here right now, tag 5 people. Tag 5 people and invite them to come into the live stream. Okay, Renee. And then also, if you decide that you want to order the product, get with the person who tagged you. It's so easy. Get with the person who tagged you, and they will tell you how to order, okay? So, Renee, you stumbled across Kristen's live stream. You got onto the system.
Yes.
What was your health like when you decided to order the system?
So I have been a type 2 diabetic for 21 years on medication. Been seeing a neurologist for a few years, and she was working with me because I was at the point where they wanted to put me on some insulin, and I refused. And through diet and going on like Trulicity and stuff like that, I was maintaining at about a 6.5 to a 7.1 A1C. When I started this product back on June 2nd, till today, just over 5.5 months, I was at my endocrinologist yesterday, and I basically was released from her. My A1C was 5.7, and I've not been on any medications whatsoever for the last 2.5 to 3 months.
Amazing.
21 years a type 2 diabetic. And from the math that I just did, it took you about 2.5 months to come off of medication?
Correct. I had to come off it. My blood sugars were going way too low.
Okay, so I'm not done with your story yet, right? But Dr. Midge,
Yeah.
prior to the field grade system,
Yeah.
how often did you see or did you hear a story like that?
Never. Like, seriously, never. I mean, the very odd person who was doing the intermittent fasting and carb restriction, but yeah, that's incredible. Amazing, Renee.
Renee, I'm now what I've learned about this is that, and as Dr. Midge is going to go through and kind of explain to us all, generally, if you're type 2, you've also got some other health problems that are associated with it. And in fact, actually, let me lay something, a little bit of, per the Centers for Disease Control, in the United States, if you have diabetes, it costs $12,022 per year. That's an actual number from the CDC. That's just for diabetes. The total cost is $19,736 per year, of which $12,022 is directly attributable to the diabetes. So it's like $7,000 and everybody's like, well, I don't pay that, but your insurance does, and that's why our rates are so high. But with that in mind, did you have anything else, or was it just type 2 diabetes? High blood pressure?
I did not have anything else diagnosed as far as a system, but as everybody knows with type 2 diabetes, what do they instantly do? They put you on a 5 milligram statin and they put you on a blood pressure medicine as a prophylactic, so they say. I have never had high blood pressure. I've never had a cholesterol issue. So all that is completely gone. I will say I was stricken by seasonal allergies really bad, and I was taking Zyrtec and Singular, and I also am off all those medications to include my omeprazole for heartburn that I was prescribed, because the only biggest issue I had prior to that for the omeprazole was I had ruptured my esophagus, which is why I was on omeprazole, but I have had no problems with that.
So another little piece of this puzzle that I don't totally know, I know enough. Your sister, how does she tie in with Unicity here? She was also on it, but you guys ordered it separately, didn't know each other were going on it.
Correct. I ordered it. I started it. 2 days later, she messaged me and said, hey, you should try this. I'm going to try it. And she's an RN and she tried it. So together, she's also a type 2 diabetic. She is not on any medications. She's got a similar A1C as me as well. I know she's below 6. I don't know what it is exactly. And she's actually down, I want to say, give or take, I think she's lost like 50 pounds in the 5 months.
So it's not just you, it's also your sister.
Yes, sir.
Very similar. I love this. What else do you have to tell me? I love the story.
Yeah.
21-year type 2 diabetic, off medications in 2.5 months. Let me ask you a question. As a diabetic, did you think that would ever happen, or did you just think that you were going to be taking those meds forever?
I thought it'd be forever. And I honestly thought this system was going to be a scam. I thought, I don't know if I tried or not. So I really started looking at stuff back in March, and it took me 3 months of researching on my own because I was very skeptical on trying it. And it took me 2 months even mention it to my husband. And once I did that, I kind of like got the nerve another month later to go ahead and start it. And
It's funny that you say that because the person that you found was Kristen, and Kristen found me. And actually, it wasn't Kristen, it was her husband, Randy, that found me. And Kristen was the skeptic. Kristen was like, Randy, and Randy's saying, I think this really makes sense. I want to try this. And she's like, you really think some random dude on TikTok is going to have the solution, huh? And now Randy no longer is on his heart medications. It's an amazing story, Randy. And then Kristen has also reversed type 2 diabetes completely. So she was a skeptic, just like you. So, and truthfully, I was a skeptic because I was a skeptic. One of my wife's best friends is the one that introduced me, and she's brilliant. Midge, you know Anne-Marie, right?
Amazing.
She's
And
brilliant.
here. Yeah.
And I've known her. She was a bridesmaid for in my wedding in 1998. I've known her pretty well for 30 years.
Yeah.
And so I knew she wasn't going to do me wrong, but it was like when she told me that some people were reversing type 2 diabetes, I was like, Anne-Marie, don't say stupid things. You can't do that. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And here I sit now.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by people. Look at Kristen. Kristen's in the comment section. Yep, she was the skeptic. So, and I can actually hear her northeastern giggle right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do, Renee, is I'm going to turn your camera off, and I'm going to ask you to kind of hang out backstage, if you will, while Dr. Midge does a presentation and kind of tells everybody why this thing's working the way that it is. And then I'd like to bring you out for a Q&A. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask of you directly. Is that okay with you?
yes, absolutely.
You're a rock star. Okay, Dr. Midge, you know what we didn't do was queue up your slideshow ahead of time.
Here. Should I press share screen?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see.
Kind of funny the way that Restream works. She shares it, but then because it's my Restream, I need to get permission to it. So there it is.
Okay. Now, how do I go to, slides? Oh no. This is, here, slideshow. Yay, can you see that?
Yep, I can see it just fine.
Okay, awesome. Okay, Jim, here's my before and after. This was me 20 pounds overweight. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can. It's hard for me to believe, but yeah.
Okay, so amazing. Thank you. I want you guys to get 5 things out of this talk. The first one is that we've been talking about diabetes a lot and pre-diabetes, but there might be some of you on here who doesn't have diabetes, and this call is still for you because what we're really talking about is insulin resistance, and that is what is actually leading to diabetes. And that process can take up to 10 to 15 years before your blood sugar starts to go up and you're diagnosed with pre-diabetes or diabetes. But the issue is in that 10 to 15 years of you having worsening insulin resistance, you can have so many different symptoms of insulin resistance, and I'm going to go into them a little bit more before your doctor says, oh, you got diabetes. So if you don't have diabetes, this call is also for you, okay? The second thing I want you guys to realize is that, like I said before, with my father, and with me even, and with Renee and Jim, medications are not the answer. Medications basically band-aid the problem, they mask the problem, but you really have to address the root cause, and that medications are not doing that. And we're going to talk about how to address the root cause. The other thing I want you guys to know is that all of these diseases that are related to insulin resistance, including diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, all of these diseases are what we call chronic metabolic diseases. And the great thing is that they're actually reversible, despite what you hear in mainstream media or what your doctor is saying to you. They're actually reversible. So that's fantastic news. And the way you reduce it is by insulin lowering strategies, which we're going to talk about. But the fourth thing I want you guys to know is that you don't want to actually wait too long. Like, don't think, okay, I'll reverse it when I get to it, because there are some things with these chronic metabolic diseases, some of the things I touched on with my father's story, where he's nearly blind because he's got, diabetic retinopathy, which is very common, or he's got some kidney issues. Had he gone to end-stage kidney disease, that would not have been reversible. We know that once somebody starts to get symptoms of dementia, you're very far gone, and it's very hard to reverse that. So do not wait for those kind of complications where they are now irreversible and you're stuck with them. The last thing I want you guys to know is that give your healthcare practitioners some grace, because we talked about how we didn't get any training in medical school in nutrition. We basically, even once we're out of medical school, well, let me back up. When we're in medical school, they teach us very well how to diagnose symptoms and then treat it with medications. So that is the way we've been taught. And then once we're out, they give us guidelines based on people who we view as experts, who really ultimately have been influenced by big pharma. They give us guidelines to say, okay, if your LDL cholesterol is a certain number, you need to go on a statin, those kind of things. And in fact, sometimes if we push against those guidelines, we could get in trouble. And so I want you guys to take everything we're saying with that knowledge that, healthcare practitioners are in some ways as much of a victim of the system as we all are. Okay, so what we're talking about are a huge problem right now. It's a huge global crisis. And in fact, 9 out of the 10 diseases that are causing death are from high-income countries, are lifestyle-related, they're metabolic chronic diseases, and they're preventable. So that's amazing. We are getting this problem not just in adults, but in kids. And when I see things like this New York Post saying that type 2 diabetes is on track to surge 700% in young Americans. This was from December 2022. This makes me so sad because when I was training over 28 years ago, we didn't see type 2 diabetes. It was so rare, and now you see things like this. So it's crazy. The other thing I want you guys to realize is that heart disease is still the #1 killer in the world. Now, if that miracle drug statin was going to cure us all of heart disease, why is it still the #1 killer? So the issue is that they're not addressing the root cause, which is our metabolic health. And this is actually a statistic from they did the study in 2022, but it was of people in 2018 where they're looking at their metabolic health. And they look at things like waist circumference, your glucose levels, your blood pressure, your HDL, which is the so-called good cholesterol, and your triglycerides. So that was the conversation that Jim and I were having, that triglyceride over HDL value. They looked at these things and they realized that 93% of adults had something wrong with one of these things. So that is a huge problem. It means that all of us are metabolically sick. And so why is that? Like, why in the past 50 years have we all become so unwell? And honestly, you guys don't need me showing you a lot of statistics. Like, you can see it outside your, in your own family, in your community, right? And part of the reason is because of the things that they've been giving, are the messages that they have been giving to us, which is making us sick. And one of the big ones, and I don't have it on here, is the food pyramid. In 1990, the USDA, so the agriculture department, made this food guide where they were telling us that we needed to eat 6 to 11 servings of whole grains, so rice, beans, pasta, all of those carbohydrates a day, right? And we all believed them. Then on top of that, they gave us some food myths. And the reason why these food myths are so, impactful to our ill health is because they did not take into account what that type of foods and the messaging around the foods would do to our hormones. And so and I'm going to talk about insulin in much more detail, but insulin is a hormone that tells our body what to do with the food that you eat. right? And so when you eat something that is high in carbohydrates, your insulin goes up in order to bring the blood sugar down in your bloodstream. When you eat something that is very high in protein, our insulin does not go up very much. And then when you eat something that's very high in dietary fat, so like a stick of butter, for example, your insulin does not respond at all. And this is very important because when it comes to our metabolic health, how what we do, what we eat, affects our insulin is very important. So with that in mind, I want you guys to just look at these food myths and think, does that make sense? One was they wanted us to think a calorie is just a calorie so that we would buy their processed food, but it isn't just a calorie because different macronutrients affect your insulin differently. Another one was, something that they've been telling us forever, that weight loss is just about calories in and calories out. And we've all tried that, and we've all been, how many times I've been on a yo-yo diet, I cannot, even count, but that's what happened. Because we were not accounting for insulin in that equation. The other one was breakfast is the most important meal of the day, which was made by Kellogg's Breakfast Company to sell us breakfast cereal. And then the eat every 2 to 3 hours to keep our metabolism up, which was basically something by the big food companies to make us keep buying food so that we would eat all the time and, keep our metabolism up. But really, this is actually a false statement. And we've actually done basic science studies, I should say, where they've shown people who go on extended fasts and their metabolism actually goes up, not the opposite. And there's no starvation mode like the food companies want us to believe. And then this one really makes me mad because they literally made us fear fat. And I'm not talking seed oils. Seed oils are inflammatory, but I'm talking about just plain old good fat, the fat on your steak, the butter in your, the butter that we all used to cook with before we all started using vegetable oils. And what they did was they took out this good fat, which now if you go back to this chart where it doesn't affect your insulin response, and they put carbohydrates in to replace it, right? And so that's what they sold to us, was a bunch of food, ultra-processed food, that was now high in carbohydrates and low in good fats. They put some seed oils in it, and then they sold it to us as heart healthy. And what you're going to learn is that this is actually the opposite of heart healthy. It's actually heart harming. So this is actually a quote from Dr. Benjamin Bigman, who Jim and I love, but he's basically a basic scientist who is probably one of the world-renowned leaders in insulin resistance. But he took all these food myths and he said that they have created the perfect recipe to create a perfect metabolic storm to ensure that insulin is elevated and every chronic disease will follow. And that is what they've done. So once again, there are so many symptoms of insulin resistance, and this can happen before you get diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So some of them are just, something you can go and look at in the mirror. One is acne, skin tags, these dark patchy pigmented areas around your neck, your groin. This is called acanthosis nigricans, and this means you have insulin resistance. And then belly fat. This is a very common one, but we're actually more worried about the fat around your organs, called visceral fat, more than the fat you can pinch, right? And that is very, very harmful. There are so many other symptoms of insulin resistance, including brain fog, which I had, anxiety and depression I had, once again, the fat, abdominal fat, high blood pressure, your lipid problems. This is interesting, is the sex hormone things, right? Where it's how did something with insulin affect people's sex hormones? But it does, and I'll kind of get into why it does in a bit. Migraines, a whole bunch of GI issues, and just feeling hungry all the time, feeling inability to lose weight. All of these things are symptoms of insulin resistance. So one of the other things is that insulin resistance causes all of those annoying symptoms that you would have gone to your doctor for, and your doctor would have put you on a medication. And, things may have seemed better, but unless you had actually addressed the root cause, which was the insulin resistance, things would only progress. And then you would start to get the chronic diseases. So we talked about diabetes, and really it's the quintessential disease of insulin resistance. But other things that happen when you have insulin resistance unchecked are things like dementia, sarcopenia, heart disease. Like, in fact, insulin resistance is the main risk factor for heart disease, not that LDL cholesterol. Things like PCOS, which we talked about, the sex hormones, migraines, low testosterone for men, or erectile dysfunction for men. All of these things are due to insulin resistance. So I want to explain why this is, and hopefully it'll be more clear. But first, I'm just going to take a sip of water.
Jim, Dr. Midge. I love listening to you.
Thank you.
And you break this down. It's so easy for us. For me.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. So basically what insulin does, like I said, it is responsible for dealing with the food that you eat, because what it really wants to do is it wants to keep your blood sugar under a certain level, because too high blood sugar is harmful, right? For many reasons. So it wants to bring your blood sugar down. And so whenever you eat, it will do that. But the reason why you may get so many other symptoms or other diseases of insulin resistance other than just diabetes is because insulin has so many other functions in our body, right? And so insulin's responsible for protein synthesis, so how well you grow muscle. It's responsible for cellular growth. It's responsible for electrolyte balance, so how much sodium and water you retain. And that's why when somebody has a problem with insulin resistance, oftentimes they also have high blood pressure. And then once again, all of those sex hormones that we talked about, where insulin is intimately involved with sex hormone production. And so now when you see that somebody is eating all the time because they've told us to, and we're eating the wrong kind of foods because they told us it was fine, that every time you eat, your blood sugar goes up and your insulin goes up, and now your blood sugar will come crashing down because your insulin spikes so high, and then you feel hypoglycemic. So then not only did they tell you to eat every 2 to 3 hours, but you feel like you have to eat every 2 to 3 hours. And so you eat again, another highly processed carbohydrate rich food, and your blood sugar goes crashing or goes up again. And just as your insulin was about to come down, literally it has to go back up to deal with that high blood sugar, and then your blood sugar crashes down. And what ends up happening for the majority of us is that you're on a blood sugar roller coaster all day long, but your insulin is up here and it's staying high all day long. And that high insulin all day long leads to your body being resistant to it, because whenever something's high, just physiologically, you just start to ignore it more and more. And so what happens is that your pancreas now has to make more insulin to try to get that blood sugar down, and it becomes this vicious cycle. But meanwhile, that insulin is also becoming resistant in other cells for other functions. And that's why you get all those other symptoms and then all the other diseases. Now, I have this picture up here because it's not just about food, but it's mainly about food. And certainly that's the biggest thing we can actually, deal with. But also you can get insulin resistance from too much stress, getting not enough sleep, right? By being inactive, by inflammation. So, inflammation from microplastics or just toxins in the world that we live in, or smoking or alcohol. So those are also ways you can get insulin resistance. But the biggest way is through our food, which is good news because we have the ability to change our food. So once again, insulin resistance is at all the symptoms and all of the diseases that most of us are suffering from.
Absolutely amazing.
Thanks.
Absolutely amazing. So Bickman, Dr. Bickman, who you talked about there,
Yeah.
I've heard him say something, I'm going to paraphrase, but if it's not something that's transmissible, like a cold or a flu, it's probably got some sort of a tie to insulin resistance. That insulin resistance seems to have its hand in every cookie jar. Is that right?
Everything. Yeah. Yeah. And even that 9 out of 10 top causes of death, it probably is 10 out of 10, because when you're insulin resistant, your immune function's not functioning at on all cylinders, and so if you got an infection, it's going to kill you much easier with insulin resistance.
Actually, I've heard that insulin, and actually I just did a post on it. Insulin resistance is a greater predictor for heart disease than LDL cholesterol.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, folks, let me go ahead. I'm going to cover a couple of things here, and I'm going to kind of push my pedal on the gas accelerator here, because I want to get to some questions, but I want to go through what the product actually is. First off, if you've been invited into here, and this is something that sounds interesting to you, then get with the person who invited you in, and they will tell you how to order. They'll give you their referral link. They have a referral link. It gets you a lifetime discount to the manufacturer. Okay? Get with them. They will get you the referral link, and then start the product. Come in with a 90-day mindset. Like, hey, they're going to give me my guarantee for 90 days. I'm going to try this for 90 days. And then just give it your best college try. If you're happy, wonderful. If you're not, ask for a refund. But I'm willing to bet that you're going to be happy. So how does this work? There are 2 products, and of course, Dr. Midge was talking about a practice, intermittent fasting. So we intermittent fast a minimum of 16 hours in a day. So for me personally, I'm done eating at 8 p.m. and I don't eat again until noon the following day. That's 16 hours. This is completely customizable. If you work night shift, obviously those hours aren't going to work for you. Just shift that window. I like to time mine around my sleep schedule. I knock out about half my fast while I'm asleep. And then from noon until 8, I allow myself 2 meals, no snacks, anything like that. Now I'm not going to make it. I'm going to starve. No, you're not, because you're not hearing me talk about calories, caloric restriction. I eat until I'm full. I don't overeat, but I eat until I'm full. I don't know how you do it, Dr. Midge, but I eat until I'm full, and I can put away some food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2 products. The first product is a tea. It's called Unamate. This is a yerba mate extract. Now, Dr. Ben Bickman, who Dr. Midge was just talking about, Dr. Bickman is a professor of cell biology and physiology at Brigham Young University. Dr. Bickman actually published research on this last October of 23. You can go to PubMed and just put in the search bar, yerba mate supplement, okay, and exerts beneficial tissue-specific okay. And what that study did was found that this pretty much, it increased your body's efficiency to burn fat. A byproduct of that study was Dr. Bickman also found that it increases GLP-1 production by up to 70%. Now, if you go to my YouTube page has that video of Dr. Bickman in a podcast. You'll see it. Dr. Bickman in a podcast saying that this increases GLP-1 by up to 70% during a fasted state. That's a quote. Now, we wake up, we drink one of those first thing in the morning. When it's gone, drink a second one. It's that easy. It is that easy. And actually, you see me drinking one right now. So the caffeine is minimal. It does have some caffeine in it, but I would never drink a coffee at this time of night. I would never drink a coffee. I'll drink this all night long. Now, the second part of the protocol is Balance. It is a fiber supplement. Balance is a unique patented blend, and I say patented. There's 4 patents on it. It's 7 different plant-based fibers. It's paired with a multivitamin, and that's really kind of where the magic is. Balance has been studied all over the world, but I like to pick on 2 places in particular. The University of Sydney, Australia, and the Cleveland Clinic. The Cleveland Clinic is widely perceived to be the top heart hospital in the United States and one of the top heart hospitals in the world. I think, Dr. Midge, you agreed with that last week, right?
Yeah.
Okay. They studied it. In fact, it was a double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized clinical trial. It was peer-reviewed, it was published, and it's been cited more than 20 times. That study, let me bring that up, actually. I want to just bring that up because I think that matters. Here we go. Share this tab. There we go. Okay, so this is a fiber and multivitamin combination therapy. This is, by the way, PubMed, NIH. You can go and actually find the study. It was published in, what is this journal?
Listen.
Yes, yes. And then if you wanted to get the PDF, it's actually available at unicityscience.org. But this study, I want to scroll down to the very bottom. It's kind of interesting. It says, such a product, if taken regularly, could reduce cardiovascular disease, cardiovascular risk on a population basis, and potentially decrease the need and or dose for lipid-lowering prescription drugs. Now, I also mentioned it was studied at the University of Sydney, Australia. And that, if you go to glycemicindex.com, it will take you to the University of Sydney, Australia. That's because the University of Sydney, Australia maintains the International Glycemic Index database as well as web page. Now, if you go to the About section of that, it will talk about her. That is Dr. Jenny Brand-Miller. She is an internationally recognized authority on carbohydrates and the glycemic index with over 250 scientific publications. Why do I talk about her? Well, because Dr. Jenny Brand-Miller has studied the same product at the University of Sydney, Australia for Unicity International. And in this study right here, she found that it lowered the glycemic as well as the insulin index for all three test foods. In this study, she observed a 20 to 28% reduction in blood glucose levels and a 13 to 27% reduction in blood insulin levels. Now, I'm trying to really push the accelerator. I hope I didn't get too fast there. Right before your heaviest meal of the day, you mix this up with some cold water and you chug it like you're in college at a frat party. Drink it as fast as you can, and then you enjoy your food. And it's that simple. You drink your 2 Unimates in the morning while you're fasting, and then you drink your balance right before you eat your biggest meal. Now, we've got about 3 minutes, guys, so I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions real quick. I've got to wrap this one up a little bit early. I'm going to bring Renee back in. Oh, I don't see Renee's camera is on. She might have disappeared on us. I think she did. Does anybody have, oh, there she is. Oh, no, there she isn't. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Midge or myself? If you have questions for Dr. Midge or myself, oh, there she is. I see her.
Yay!
I'm here.
Does anybody have any questions for any of us? The system in the United States costs $159 per month. That's about $5.30 a day. I know 159 times are tough right now, but what if it gave you the opportunity to come off of some of those medications? What if you're a skeptic and you turn into Renee? 3 months down the road, you're not needing medications after 21 years. $5.30, you really can't even get through Starbucks for that price. When you start intermittent fasting, that pretty much covers the cost of the product. So I don't see any questions coming in, so I'm going to transition over to wrap up. Renee, if you were to talk to a skeptic, I want you to address yourself 6 months ago, when you were dragging your heels saying, it's a scam. What do you say to yourself 6 months ago?
Jump in. I have never been able to do anything that benefited my change in my life with my diabetes as easily as this system has helped me.
That was easy. Yeah.
I mean, it was easy. I think it's very easy with the T's, with the balance, to change your diet to move forward. It helps you. I mean, I could easily say now, looking back, that I was an addict to sugar and sweets and the carbs and everything we weren't supposed to be having. There's just something about the tea and the brain receptors that it just blocked all that.
I love it.
It was amazing.
Dr. Midge, a lot of that has to do with the GLP-1.
And
Okay.
the chlorogenic acid, yeah. With
Dr. Midge,
mhm.
what would you say to a skeptic?
Well, I would say as a doctor, not to think that the medications are going to help you, and do something that will change your lifestyle and your diet, and that's going to help you, right? So 100%. This is, for me, the easiest thing I've done. I agree with you, Renee. Probably for you as well, Jim. And not just easy, but enjoyable, right? Like all of a sudden, you're actually feeling good, like pretty much immediately with that tea, And that's the chlorogenic acid. We didn't even talk about the chlorogenic acid.
I know, and I was pushing the pedal to get the live stream done. It's interesting though. I went and got some blood drawn yesterday, and I like to do it on a completely fasted state, so I didn't have my yerba mate before.
Yeah.
And I felt awful. It was until I had it. I felt awful. I don't like not having it first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you were tagged into this live stream, if you were invited into this live stream by somebody else, rewind it, watch the whole thing. Dr. Midge is an endocrinologist. She's a real doctor. She gave a real presentation there. And then you heard an amazing testimonial out of Renee. I've also reversed type 2 diabetes. The system works. If you've been invited into here, just get with the person who invited you in. They'll tell you how to order. We'll do this again next week. Dr. Midge, thank you very much. Renee, thank you very much. You all have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you later.